3 hours. The Strait of Hormuz. Less than 24 hours after the Geneva peace talks collapsed, a suffocating silence hangs over the black waters of the Persian Gulf. Thousands of sleeping United States Marines are completely unaware they are resting squarely in the crosshairs of a massive Iranian missile swarm streaking through the night sky. But folks, here is the lethal error the commanders in Tehran made tonight. If you launch a multi-million-dollar surprise attack hoping to drown the US Navy in a sea of fire, then you absolutely must ensure your own air defense system does not suddenly suffer a catastrophic psychotic break. Instead of witnessing the glorious sinking of an American destroyer, the Iranian generals watching the radar screens deep inside the Zagros Mountains are screaming in absolute terror. Their prized Bavar 373 missiles abruptly pull a violent U-turn mid-air and mercilessly annihilate their own MiG-29 escort fighters in a spectacular $100 million fireball. Deep underground, buried beneath hundreds of feet of solid granite in the Zagros Mountains, the Iranian commanders pacing the concrete floors of the OCAB-44 subterranean base are high-fiving each other in premature celebration. They honestly believe they hold the lives of the American fleet in the palm of their hands tonight. On the surface, a massive armada of Mobile Transporter Erector Launchers, or TELs, roll into their firing positions, kicking up dust as they aim a terrifying wave of ballistic missiles toward the horizon. Simultaneously, a swarm of heavily armed speedboats and cheap kamikaze drones roar across the dark water, forming a deadly, coordinated wall of metal racing directly toward the guided missile destroyers USS Gravely and USS Carney. The Iranian plan is brutally simple. Overwhelm the billion-dollar American radar systems with thousands of cheap, buzzing distractions until one lucky strike breaks through the Aegis shield and sends an American ship to the bottom. But here is the genius detail that the Russian and Iranian military planners completely missed. Most ordinary people watching the news only see a terrifying swarm of missiles ready to launch. But those of you with a sharp tactical mind will immediately realize a massive, glaring vulnerability in their strategy. These gigantic, slow-moving Iranian missile launchers have absolutely no idea they were secretly tagged with microscopic CIA-deployed GPS tracking beacons months ago. The very second the Iranian Supreme Leader gives the launch order, a classified United States Space Force satellite orbiting high above instantly captures the encrypted telemetry data. Would you stay and fight if you knew your exact coordinates were just downloaded to the deadliest aircraft on the planet? Stay focused, because the physics of destruction in the next 30 seconds is about to turn this arrogant Iranian show of force into a devastating $400 million embarrassment of epic proportions. Inside the Combat Information Center of the guided missile destroyer USS Gravely, the atmosphere is freezing cold, lit only by the ominous pulsing green glow of the Aegis Baseline 10 tactical displays. The SPY-6 radar system, the undisputed heavyweight champion of the electromagnetic spectrum, is effortlessly painting a terrifying picture across the screens. A massive buzzing swarm of cheap fiberglass Shahed 136 suicide drones, powered by what are essentially glorified lawnmower engines, is flying low over the choppy waters, masking their approach behind the curvature of the Earth. The Iranian commanders are using a classic brutal meat grinder strategy. They are throwing thousands of these $20,000 disposable toys at the American fleet, hoping to force a mathematical nightmare upon the United States Navy. If you were the commanding officer standing on that bridge right now, staring at a wall of incoming explosive drones, what would your next move be? Would you panic and start mashing the launch button, or would you trust a machine to solve an impossible financial equation? Because the Iranian logic is purely economical and, quite frankly, incredibly annoying. They know that a single RIM 162 evolved Sea Sparrow missile screaming out of the Mk-41 vertical launching system cost the American taxpayer roughly $2 million. If the USS Gravely and the USS Carney ripple-fire their multi-million-dollar interceptors to swat down these cheap plastic gnats, they will completely empty their missile magazines in less than 10 minutes. The fleet would survive the first wave, but they would be left floating out there with empty tubes, completely defenseless against the real, heavier supersonic anti-ship cruise missiles lurking right behind the drone swarm. This is the ultimate high-stakes poker game of modern naval warfare. The enemy is desperately trying to bankrupt the American defensive umbrella, one cheap drone at a time, bleeding the fleet dry before the main assault. But folks, here is the lethal error that the arrogant tacticians in Tehran completely failed to calculate in their dusty underground bunkers. A normal viewer might look at this desperate situation and think the United States Navy is trapped in an unwinnable war of attrition, forced to trade Ferraris for rusty bicycles just to stay alive. Stay tuned, because the physics of destruction in the next 30 seconds is about to completely rewrite the rules of naval engagement and turn this supposed Iranian masterstroke into a spectacular, burning graveyard of cheap plastic. Meanwhile, back inside the damp, dimly lit corridors of the OCAB-44 subterranean bunker, the mood is nothing short of a premature, arrogant carnival. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard commanders, puffed up with misplaced pride and fueled by years of hollow propaganda, are literally passing around sweet tea and slapping each other on the back. They stare at their outdated, flickering radar consoles, watching the massive green blobs of their drones swarm, closing the distance on the American destroyers. In their minds, they have already won the battle of mathematics. The Iranian Brigadier General, a man whose tactical experience consists entirely of bullying unarmed merchant vessels, confidently strokes his beard and smiles, fully believing the Aegis shield is currently suffocating under the weight of his cheap fiberglass armada. Outside on the rugged coastal cliffs overlooking the pitch-black Persian Gulf, the young Iranian missile operators are practically dancing around their mobile launchers. They are high-fiving in the dirt, shouting victory slogans into the humid night air, convinced they are about to make history by sinking a billion-dollar Navy warship with a swarm of flying lawnmowers. They genuinely think the mighty American fleet is paralyzed by the sheer volume of this assault. But folks, here is the lethal error in their deeply flawed, arrogant logic. A casual observer might look at this underground celebration and think Iran has masterfully backed the greatest superpower into a corner. But those of you with a true strategic mindset will instantly recognize the fatal flaw in counting your burning ships before they sink. If you ask why this celebration is about to become the most humiliating, catastrophic wake in military history, I will tell you an unbelievable military secret. The Iranians are so blinded by their own hubris that they completely failed to realize the American destroyers haven't fired a single interceptor yet. On the bridge of the guided missile destroyer USS Gravely, the tactical action officer breaks the suffocating silence, not by ordering a multi-million-dollar missile barrage that would bankrupt the ship's magazines, but by calmly flipping a single switch on his primary console. If you were the Iranian commander sitting in that damp subterranean bunker right now, staring at your flickering radar screens, you would probably think you have successfully cornered the United States Navy into an unwinnable war of financial attrition. The second, much denser wave of Iranian Shahed 136 suicide drones is violently buzzing just 50 feet above the choppy waves, specifically designed to overwhelm the Aegis combat system through sheer volume. But here is the lethal error that the arrogant tacticians in Tehran completely failed to calculate. The United States Navy is absolutely not playing their pathetic game of interceptor economics, because they brought a revolutionary weapon that makes traditional air defense completely irrelevant. Instantly, the high-energy laser with integrated optical dazzler and surveillance system, known as Helios, hums to life on the destroyer's towering superstructure with a deep mechanical growl. This silently operating 60-kilowatt directed energy weapon does not fire a physical projectile. Instead, it unleashes a devastating, invisible beam of pure, concentrated light directly across the black water at the absolute speed of light. The thermal truth is about to get very, very loud, and the physics of destruction in the next 30 seconds is about to change the map forever. The scorching laser beam effortlessly slices through the humid night air and instantly burns a glowing, superheated hole straight through the thin fiberglass nose cone of the lead Iranian drone. The drone's internal fuel lines rupture and violently ignite, detonating its explosive payload mid-air and creating a spectacular, blossoming fireball that briefly turns the pitch-black ocean into bright daylight. The actual cost for the American taxpayers to completely vaporize that $20,000 piece of Iranian flying junk? roughly $3.50 worth of diesel fuel to generate the required electricity. As the Helios system mercilessly swivels with terrifying robotic precision, smoothly slicing through drone after drone like a hot knife through cheap butter, a much deadlier and invisible nightmare is silently unfolding high above the Zagros Mountains. But wait, there is one more layer to this triple threat failure. While the Iranians were entirely fixated on watching their sinking drone armada turn into molten slag, a ghost squadron of American F-35 Lightning II stealth fighters had already slipped deep into their heavily defended airspace, flying undetected by the aging Soviet-era radars. Stay focused, because how this ends is an absolute masterclass in making the Grizzly blink first. These fifth-generation marvels do not even need to drop a single kinetic bomb to humiliate the enemy. Instead, they open their weapon bays and prepare to unleash a classified electromagnetic pulse. The encrypted microwave beam silently strikes the Iranian Bavar 373 air defense network, instantly scrambling their targeting computers and inducing a catastrophic electronic psychotic break within the mainframe. The panicked radar operators deep inside the Zagros Mountains can only watch in paralyzed horror as their multi-million-dollar Sayyad 4B interceptor missiles automatically launch themselves from the silos, violently pitching over in the night sky to lock onto the heat signatures of their very own returning MiG-29 and F-14 fighter jets. The sky above the rugged peaks transforms into a fratricidal meat grinder, shredding the Iranian Air Force into falling showers of burning aluminum before the Americans even fire a single kinetic weapon. But folks, here is the genius detail that makes this a masterpiece of strategic intimidation. With the enemy air defenses completely neutralizing themselves in a humiliating display of technological incompetence, the airspace is now wide open. Flying low across the Iraqi border, a massive formation of B-1B Lancer supersonic bombers roars into the theater. The heavy bomber bays swing wide open, unleashing a biblical rain of 2,000-pound GBU-31J DAM smart bombs directly onto the exposed Iranian mobile launchers. The explosions chain react across the mountainside, instantly vaporizing the billion-dollar missile arsenal. Simultaneously, American F-15E Strike Eagles launch a blistering volley of supersonic Rampage bunker-busting missiles that plunge straight down the ventilation shafts of the Okab-44 subterranean facility. The hardened concrete ceilings violently collapse inwards, burying the arrogant Iranian commanders and their shattered dreams under thousands of tons of suffocating rubble. As the apocalyptic dust settles over the pulverized remains of the Zagros Mountains, a chilling realization washes over the surviving Iranian commanders. The Persian Gulf is silent again, but it is a silence owned entirely by the United States Navy. Down on the dark water, the massive Bella 1 oil tanker calmly continues its transit through the Strait of Hormuz, completely untouched. The American destroyers USS Gravely and USS Carney are peacefully slicing through the waves, their hulls absolutely unscratched, and their multi-million-dollar vertical launch systems are still packed full of fresh RIM 162 interceptors. If you were the Iranian Supreme Leader reading this disastrous morning briefing, you would realize you just flushed a $500 million military operation down the drain without scratching a single American paint job. The United States military did not just defeat the ambush, they humiliated Tehran's elite forces on a global stage while operating on pennies. But folks, here is the detail that makes this a masterpiece. Normal people look at the burning mountains and think the battle is over, but those with a tactical mind know the Americans never just defend. While the Iranian generals are digging their shattered pride out of the rubble, the real nightmare for Tehran is just quietly spinning up. Stay with me, because the final move isn't a shot across the bow. It is a fatal, strategic checkmate. The advanced Oran AEW and C aircraft, hovering invisibly at 40,000 feet, acted as a massive vacuum cleaner for every encrypted radio transmission the panicked Iranians desperately broadcasted during their chaotic failure. The Pentagon now holds the exact GPS coordinates of every backup subterranean silo hidden across the entire Zagros mountain range. If you think the United States Navy is going to sail away after this stunt, you do not understand how a superpower cleans house. Right now, deep in the vertical launch tubes of the USS Gravely, a fresh batch of Tomahawk cruise missiles is powering on, receiving those freshly stolen coordinates for a devastating counterstrike. So, if you were the commander of the American fleet tomorrow morning, would you show mercy, or would you press the launch button and finish the job? Let me know your ultimate Grandmaster move in the comments below.